Hello, BookTube. I have a Sunday MegaStuff video because MegaStuff does not stop accumulating even on the holy day, even on the Sabbath. So we got a bunch of little bits and pieces that I want to natter on about. The first one of which is my Mailboy saga. Some of you have been following this saga eagerly all summer long. I had a slope-shouldered, 1,000-mile stare, battered old 100-year civil servant who was delivering my mail. And then one day I didn't. One day I had a gorgeous young boy, early 20s, with a mailbag strapped onto his huge shoulders, with his floppy hair and an outgoing personality, very friendly. And we got to talking. We got to know each other a little bit. Not nearly as much as we would have if it weren't for plague restrictions. We can't stand there and chat, even with masks on. That's an egregious risk. And he can't. We can't do anything else. So it's little bits and pieces that I got to know him by. But I did eventually get to, I'm out all the time with my little dog, so I get to know people in the neighborhood eventually. And it turned out that he wanted to get back into reading, that he used to read like so many people. He remembers how great it was to have reading as an active part of his life, but he'd fallen away from it. I did not harp on him. You'll be proud to know I did not harp on him. I could have, because he said, yeah, I don't know why. And I wanted to say, it was right there on the tip of my tongue to say, well, I know why. You might not know why, but I know why. There's a very good reason why you don't read anymore. It's because you play video games 10 hours a day. Where do you think that time comes from? But I didn't say anything like that. Instead, I encouraged him. He got to know, mailmen here get to know pretty quick that I get lots of books in the mail. So we started talking about books. I started recommending them to him, and they were working. My recommendations were landing. I pride myself on my ability to recommend books. I get my ego out of the process completely, which is not easy to do when your ego is quite as healthy as mine, but I do. I get it out of the process completely because I want my recommendations to land. Connecting someone with a book that's going to make them vibrate like a violin string is far more important than whether or not I like that book, or whether or not I agree with them liking it or anything like that. That is far more important. So that matters to me, and I was very happy to hear that my recommendations were landing, that they were getting seconded by some of his own relatives. That was wonderful. And then he disappeared. All of a sudden, my old mailman was back, and I asked him what was going on. He had no idea, and then he informed me later on that the word around the office was that my mailboy had COVID-19. That he got it on. I'm amazed that all mail carriers don't get it, but that he got it and that he was quarantining. And then later word, the woman who drives the mail truck told me that not only was that true, but that he wasn't just quarantining to be safe, to his coworkers. He was quarantining because he was actually sick. He did develop symptoms. Most people that get this don't. They quarantine out of simple altruism for their fellow human beings, that's all, unless they work in the White House. But he reappeared. He is back on his route, as you're going to see, because I have mail on a Sunday. He's back on his route, and I only saw him from a distance. I waved. I got a chance to say, welcome back, but I haven't heard any details yet. I just wanted you all to know, since you want your Mailboy update, I wanted you to know he is apparently hale and healthy. Phew. So that's your Mailboy update. I also want to give you a Preptober update. Those of you who have been watching my drama with Preptober. Preptober is the word that NaNoWriMo people give to October, because October is when you prepare for NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, which does not allow you to write before the stroke of midnight on November 1st, but does allow you to plan to your heart's content, to plot and to scheme. And you need to do that in order to have the momentum, the forward momentum that you need on the 1st of November, I think, anyway. And I had a story in mind, Kendra Victrix, a piece of science fiction that I was looking forward to plotting out and then writing. And then it went off the rails, just completely off the rails. And I have been doubting in the last few days. I've been doubting whether or not it is off the rails, because I've been suspicious of my own all or nothing reaction. That suddenly it was the thing that I didn't want to write at all. I'd willing to write anything instead. That kind of absolutism seemed a little distrustful, and it still does. But I was panicking because I've only got a week left. That's not a long time to plot out and research and block out a novel that is going to sustain you for 50,000 words. So I was batting all around. I was thinking I had a backup candidate at the Elliott Annex. I thought maybe I should start pouring work into that. Maybe that was a backup for a reason. Maybe that will be the thing I do. And then I was contemplating other ideas. I never had a lack for ideas. The real challenge with NaNoWriMo when it comes to ideas, for me anyway, is winnowing out the ones that will actually bear the weight. Not all of them will, and you don't want to get to the middle of November and find out that you backed the wrong horse. And then last night I thought, what you need to do here is stop and just put the whole subject out of your mind for a day. Now that is a very hard thing for me to do. Very, very hard. But I have done it. I am not thinking about NaNoWriMo. I will resume thinking about it and spinning my wheels and trying to figure out what to do first thing tomorrow. Until then, your Preptober update is that there is no Preptober update. I am intentionally letting my plates stop spinning. And the reason I bring it up, even though it's a boring update, is because you might want to be, if you're in that position, you might want to try that yourself. It really does help to stop thinking about a subject for a period of time. Just put it out of your mind. So I'm gonna do that, and I will hopefully have a very optimistic Preptober update tomorrow for you. And then another thing I wanted to talk about, another little MegaStuff bit here, involves something that we did for a couple of months in the run up to ShakeTube. I asked you all to send me pictures of your Shakespeare. The Shakespeare books that you will be using for ShakeTube, whether it's books you get out of the library or the Shakespeare books in your home. I asked for pictures of those because I'm infinitely nosy along those lines. And you sent pictures, but you also started to include pictures of your babies, of your dogs and your cats and your rats. And that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun seeing all those pictures and showing them to you. And I was thinking about that because an old friend of mine sent me an email about how radically his library has changed. And he's just a patron at that library. But it reminded me again that I have 3 friends who aren't just patrons at libraries, but actually work at libraries. I have a friend who some of you will know, who is the library director of a very small library in Vermont. Then I have a friend who works at a library that's much bigger, a much bigger, much better budget library in the American South. And then I have an old friend who is a research librarian at a very much older library in Italy. And I've heard stories, therefore, about libraries for a long time. And that made me think that all of those stories now involve change. Except that the libraries are still physically there. But a lot of them have changed rules, obviously, changed attendance hours and whatnot, the protocols for borrowing books and other materials. And that got me curious, in the same way that ShakeTube did, only this time about your libraries. Not your personal library, but the building where so many of you have loved going. I want to know the stories of your libraries. I was inspired by this book, The Library, The Drama Within. It's the National Library in Paris there, obviously, a huge reading room there. This has photographs by Diane Aseo Griliches, and all it is there's the Library of Congress. That is Shakespeare's foot looking down on the Library of Congress. Let me see if I can get, yes, there's the Bates reading room of the Boston Public Library. That is an older photo. This is an older book taken along underneath the row of lamps that were on the wooden tables at Bates Hall, and those lamps aren't there anymore. That picture would look a lot better, even in black and white, now than it does. And there you have a carved foot of a card catalog at Bates Hall, with a little quote from Barbara Tuchman about card catalogs, and that also betrays the age of this volume because those carved feet are still there, and the card catalogs are still there, but the card catalogs are empty. You don't use them for anything. The Boston Public Library kept some of them as historical curiosities, but they're not used for indexing or finding books anymore. And there, of course, is the New York Public Library. And there are a bunch of others, too. There's one, the Widener Library is in here, many, many Newton, Worcester, there were many, many Massachusetts libraries, Cambridge, Dorchester. But there was one, I thought, if I remember correctly, the Bodleian Library in Oxford, the Folger Library is in here. But I thought there was one, there's a lot, the Thomas Crane Public Library in Quincy, Massachusetts. And Florence, here we go. The St. Johnsbury Athenaeum in St. Johnsbury, Vermont. A very old Athenaeum, I gather. And this is just a terrific book. It's just full of black and white photos of libraries, large and small. And that inspired me to wonder if you might consider sending me pictures of your own library, wherever you are. Pictures and stories. I would love them. If you would do that, I would love them. Send me pictures of your library. Tell me stories about your library. A lot of you lived at your libraries. I have not. In recent years, I once upon a time, I lived at Bates Hall at the Boston Public Library and at the Boston Athenaeum. Once upon a time, I did a huge amount of work there. During the intervals, when my dogs, whatever dogs I had, were in companionable late middle age and were sleeping all day long, if I knew that they were perfectly healthy, perfectly happy, but that they were going to sleep 22 hours a day. So I take them for a walk in the early morning, I take them for a walk in the mid-morning, I settle them down, and they're just going to be sound asleep until 3 or 4 in the afternoon. If I know that about them, if I know that I'm not neglecting them in any way, then I have periodic intervals in my life, depending on how old the batch of dogs are, I've been content to leave and soak up the communal atmosphere of a library. It's been wonderful. The 5th floor of the Boston Athenaeum is my favorite place in the whole world. And Bates Hall at Boston Public Library in the old building, the Kim, Mead, and White building, is incredible. It's an incredible feeling to work there. It's possible that if the world had remained normal, it's possible that when my current dog, my little Frida Bean, who is sound asleep on the bed, it's possible that when she reaches middle age, that maybe I would have gone there, that I would have reinstituted. I always tell myself that I won't, and then I always do. I always tell myself, oh, now this dog or these dogs are different, these dogs I won't be leaving, but then I do, because I miss it. So my own attendance at my own library, Boston Public Library, has been spotty at best. So the occurrence of a pandemic hasn't really changed things. But I bet that's not true for a lot of you. I bet a lot of you lived at your libraries, and now I'm wondering. Now I want to know stories. I want to know stories about those, and feel free to go on a little field trip. Mask up and go on a little field trip and take a picture of your library. And if any of you want to do that, and if you do, I will gladly reply in kind. I will gladly go and take pictures of my own library and a couple of other libraries and branches that I'm near. But one way or another, I wanted to mention that because the aforementioned library director in a tiny Vermont library, Mark Richardson at Richardson Reads, came up with that idea, and I thought it was fantastic. If you want to send me pictures of a library, consider yourself invited. I would very much like to see the pictures and hear the stories. And the last bit of MegaStuff we have is 2 mail packages. I have a big heavy package and a big heavy box. Not bad for a Sunday. The big manila envelope here is very heavy. So I think it's not only a finished copy, but a big finished copy. And that is thrilling. For me, that is thrilling. It's odd that it would be thrilling. Because I read a lot of ebooks now. 2020 is the year when I have gradually stopped even considering the physical heft of a book, because so much of what I read doesn't have any physical heft. That's weird. That's a weird feeling on its own. Worth an essay, perhaps a podcast. But let's see what we have here. Oh, fantastic. Oh, great. Oh, I love book publicists. I tell them that I want to be on a list for a finished copy, and then I forget about it. But they don't forget. Wonderful. Okay, well, this is Heather Clark. This is Red Comet, The Short Life and Blazing Art of Sylvia Plath. Huge thing. Just huge. And the reason that I'm overjoyed about it is not only because I think it's one of the major biographies of 2020, but also because I am reviewing it. I am commissioned to review it. So my review will be joining the conversation for this book eventually. I don't know when, but eventually. So it is wonderful I reviewed it from an ebook, as I increasingly do now. But it is wonderful to have the finished copy. Wonderful. It's a fantastic biography. And now I am on the horns of a drama because I love biographies. It would be a wonderful treat to add this to my biography wall. I don't have any other Sylvia Plath biographies. That's on the one hand. And on the other hand, Jason at Old Blues Chapter and Birth is a huge Sylvia Plath fan who not only is a huge fan of her work, but has read all of her biographies. And this is, what, $40? Yeah, it's $40. And also he and Kelly are in some sort of Sovietistan nuts not buy any new books, but I bet he would make an exception for getting a new book in the mail. So I should probably send this. But I will wait just a bit to reread it. And on the back here has blurbs from a started review from Kirkus, and blurbs from Ruth Franklin, who wrote a very good Shirley Jackson biography, Mary Dearborn, who wrote an Ernest Hemingway biography, Selena Hastings, who wrote a Somerset Maugham biography, and Maggie Doherty, who wrote a book called The Equivalents, also in 2020, that is terrific. You should definitely read it. You should read this too. What a book. Oh my. This is Sylvia Plath as a living, breathing person. This is a Sylvia Plath biography that is not haunted by her final act. That is not retroactively told as if all things are leading towards that final act. And that was so refreshing. Because after talking to Jason a bit about it, I got some of those earlier biographies to read them. And it's a thing that, it's a quality that they tend to share, even when the author's trying hard to shake it off, is that they seem to be doom haunted. This is not a biography that is doom haunted. This is a Sylvia Plath who laughs and jokes and works real hard, hustles real hard, getting any kind of freelance work that she can, including at the Christian Science Monitor. So wonderful. To have a finished copy is wonderful. Okay, so that is the big manila envelope. Now we have the box. And that's it. Only two, but considering that it's a Sunday and there shouldn't be any mail at all, I'm perfectly happy with two. Oh my. Oh, this one's fighting. This one's fighting. That's not good. One of Steve's rules about packages in the mail is that the more they fight, the less worthwhile they are to open. I hate to think that's true in this case. Well, Sleepyhead wakes up, huh? Is that because you want to destroy this box? Is that why? You want to destroy this box? Oh, somebody's woken up. All right, you want to destroy it, it's all yours. The box is as big as you are, though, Frida, so I don't know. Oh, my. Okay. All right. This is the other example. There are always going to be two categories here. Either I'm going to get a finished copy of something that I've already read or know about or have an advanced copy for, or I'm going to get a finished copy of something that I don't have any of those things for, and that's this. Paul Morley, A Sound Mind. How I Fell in Love with Classical Music and Decided to Rewrite Its Entire History. Good Lord. Who is Paul Morley when he's at home? Writer, critic, and broadcaster, he was a founding member of the influential electronic ensemble Art of Noise, collaborated with Grace Jones on her best-selling memoirs, and was an artistic advisor for the David Bowie Is exhibition at the V&A, which traveled extensively in the United States and around the world. He is the author of a number of books on music, including biographies of David Bowie and Joy Division, as well as 2 acclaimed memoirs. And he lives in London. Okay. All right, let's see what we have here. This one has a pub sheet. Paul Morley made his name as a journalist, covering the rock and pop of the 1970s and 80s. But as his career progressed, he found himself drawn towards developing technologies, streaming platforms, and increasingly the music from the past that streaming services now made available. Suddenly able to access every piece by Mozart or Bach had ever written and to curate playlists that worked with these musicians' themes across different performers, composers, and eras, he began to understand classical music in a whole new way and to believe that it was a music at its most dramatic and revealing. I totally agree with that. How wonderful he came to this late in life after covering, what was it again? Rock and pop. In this book, the author takes readers along on his journey into the history and future of classical music. His descriptions, explanations, and guidance make this seemingly arcane genre more friendly to listeners and show the music's power, depth, and timeless beauty. I'm sold. Absolutely sold. Okay, this comes out on November 10th. So the second Tuesday in November. Unbelievable. Okay, great. Once again, I can think of 2 or 3 booktubers who would want this in the mail, maybe more than I would. Although I am a lifelong fan of classical music, provided we define classical music as the Baroque era only. But anyway, fantastic. Okay, so we end the mail today. It was great. 2 big finished copies. So a sound mind, a new history, a new conception of classical music, and Red Comet, a truly great biography of Sylvia Plath. Truly one of the great biographies of this year. So fantastic. Great. So there you go. That is your Sunday MegaStuff video. I am zen clearing my mind for NaNoWriMo. I have my Mailboy back. I want to see pictures and stories of your libraries, and I got 2 great books in the mail. So, all right, so that will do it. And I'm going to wrap this up for now. I don't think there'll be any more videos today, but if one way or another, I will see you soon. Thank you, book.